I got home from overseas at 2:13 in the morning, 2 weeks before anyone expected me. The key had barely turned in the lock when my roommate came flying down the hallway in bare feet, wearing one of my old Air Force hoodies. Sophie Bennett hit me so hard my duffel bag dropped to the floor. Then she wrapped both arms around my neck and held on, like letting go might send me back. For a few seconds, I forgot how to breathe. My name is Caleb Hart. I was 26, an Air Force aircraft mechanic, and I had just finished a 6-month rotation in Qatar. Our replacement crew arrived early, a seat opened on a transport flight, and after 21 hours of travel, I decided to surprise Sophie rather than call ahead. I had imagined several versions of her reaction. Most involved a sleepy smile, a sarcastic comment about the smell of my uniform, and perhaps permission to use my own shower. None involved her body pressed against mine while she whispered, "You're here," into my neck like it was the only sentence she trusted herself to say. "I'm here," I said. Her arms tightened. Sophie and I had been roommates for almost 2 years. We'd met through my cousin, signed a lease because neither of us could afford that part of Virginia alone, and established 3 simple rules. Don't leave dishes overnight. Don't bring dates home without warning. Don't make things weird. That third rule had been my idea. It had also been getting harder to follow. Sophie was 25, worked as a graphic designer for a small advertising agency, and could turn grocery shopping into a competitive event. She labeled leftovers with fake legal warnings, sang badly when she cooked, and had a habit of sitting on the kitchen counter even though we owned perfectly good chairs. She was also beautiful in ways I tried not to study too closely. Brown eyes that sharpened when she was teasing me. Dark hair she usually twisted up with a pencil. A small scar near her chin from falling off a bicycle at 9, which she'd told me about during a power outage over cheap wine and melting ice cream. Before I left, we'd been circling something neither of us named. Longer looks, quieter evenings. Her head on my shoulder during movies. My hand lingering at her waist when I moved past her in our narrow kitchen. Then deployment orders gave us both an excuse to pretend none of it meant anything. I was good at leaving before people could decide I wasn't worth waiting for. My last serious relationship had ended with the sentence, "I can't keep building a life around your absences." I didn't blame her, but after that I stopped asking anyone to try. Sophie still hadn't released me. I lowered my hands to her waist, intending to gently set her back. Instead, I left them there. She felt warm and real beneath the thick, gray hoodie. Her cheek rested against my shoulder. The apartment smelled like vanilla candles and the cinnamon tea she drank when she couldn't sleep. "You know," I murmured, "most people say welcome home before attempting a standing chokehold." Her laugh broke against my neck, but it sounded dangerously close to a sob. That changed everything. "Sophie? I'm fine. You're crying on government property." "You're not government property." "Debatable." She finally leaned back, but only far enough to look at me. Her hands remained locked behind my neck. Her eyes were wet. Her hair was loose and tangled from sleep, and there was a faint crease on her cheek from a pillow. I had seen sunsets over the desert that men around me stopped talking to watch. None of them hit me the way she did in that hallway. "You said the 28th, she whispered. "I know. It's the 14th. I've recently learned how calendars work." She gave my shoulder a weak shove. "You couldn't text?" "I wanted to surprise you." "Well, congratulations. I almost attacked you with a lamp." I glanced down the hallway. A brass table lamp lay on its side near her bedroom door. "That would have been embarrassing paperwork." Her mouth curved, but the smile didn't fully arrive. She studied my face, touching the edge of my jaw with her fingertips, as if checking whether I was actually standing there. The tenderness of it made my chest ache. "I watch the news too much," she admitted. "Sophie, I know you told me not to. You said your base was safe. You said aircraft maintenance. Wasn't exactly hand-to-hand combat. It usually isn't. But every time something happened anywhere in the region, I checked my phone." Her thumb brushed the tired skin beneath my eye. "And when you didn't answer for 3 days last month? We had a communications blackout. I explained that." Afterward. There was no accusation in her voice. That was worse. I had thought I was protecting her by keeping my calls light. I told funny stories about terrible coffee, complained about sand getting into equipment, and avoided saying how much I missed our kitchen, our couch, and the sound of her arguing with cooking videos. Mostly I avoided telling her how often I pictured coming home to her. "I'm sorry," I said. She looked down. "You don't owe your roommate hourly proof of life." "No, but I owed you more than I gave you." That brought her eyes back to mine. The hallway went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and rain tapping against the living room windows. Her arms were still around my neck. My hands were still at her waist. Neither of us appeared particularly committed to correcting that. Then I noticed what she was wearing. "Is that my hoodie?" "No." "It has my last name on it." She glanced down at the embroidered heart over her chest. "Could be anyone's." "Anyone named Hart who happens to be in the Air Force?" It was cold. "In June?" "Air conditioning is unpredictable." I smiled for the first time since landing. "You missed me." She started to make a joke. I saw it gathering behind her eyes, ready to rescue us from honesty, but she didn't use it. "Yes," she said. "I missed you." The words landed harder than her running hug. I'd spent 6 months telling myself I only missed the familiarity. That anyone would miss shared coffee and someone yelling from the bathroom that we were out of toothpaste. But no one else had made me count time zones before calling. No one else's voice had made a metal bunk in a crowded building feel less lonely. And standing there with Sophie wearing my name over her heart, I was tired of pretending that was ordinary. I drew her a little closer. Her breath caught. "If you keep holding me like this," I said quietly, "I'm going to misunderstand." A flush moved across her cheeks, but she didn't step away. "What if you don't?" Every sensible thought I had vanished. Sophie. She looked toward my bedroom, and something nervous crossed her face. Only then did I notice the light under my door. She swallowed. "There's something in your room." "What?" "I was going to get rid of it before you came home." My hands loosened, though I didn't let her go. "Should I be worried?" "Probably." She took one of my hands and led me down the hallway. My bedroom door stood slightly open. Through the gap, I could see dozens of folded pages spread across my desk, each one dated during the months I'd been gone. Sophie stopped with her fingers on the doorknob. "I wrote to you every night," she said. "I just never sent any of it." Then she looked up at me, scared and hopeful at the same time. "Caleb, before you read them, I need to know something." Her fingers tightened around mine. "Did you come home early because you missed this apartment? Or because you missed me?" "You," I said. The answer came so quickly it surprised both of us. Sophie's lips parted. "What?" "I missed you." Her eyes searched mine, wary of an easy answer. "I missed the apartment too," I continued. "I missed my bed. I missed coffee that didn't taste like it had been filtered through a work boot. But when they told me there was an open seat home, you were the first person I wanted to tell." "Then why didn't you?" "Because I wanted to see your face." A tear slipped down her cheek. I caught it with my thumb. "This face?" she asked. "Exactly that one. It's 2 in the morning. This face has pillow lines. I miss those too." She laughed softly and the sound released something tight inside me. Then her gaze shifted to the pages covering my desk. "You should read one," she said. "You're sure?" "No." She drew a breath. "But do it anyway." I stepped into my bedroom. Everything looked almost exactly as I'd left it. The bed was made with military precision. I knew Sophie couldn't have managed without a tutorial. My books were lined along the dresser, my spare boots sat beneath the desk, and a framed photo rested beside the lamp. It was one I hadn't seen before. Sophie and I stood on our apartment balcony last 4th of July. She was laughing at something outside the frame while I watched her instead of the fireworks behind us. Someone, probably my cousin, had captured the exact moment I should have admitted I was already in trouble. "You put this in here?" I asked. She hugged her arms around herself. "Your room looked empty." I picked up one of the letters. June 3rd was written at the top. "Not that one," she said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. "Actually, maybe not any of them." "You've changed the rules in under 10 seconds." "I'm under emotional stress." I held the paper out to her. You choose. She considered the pages, then selected one from the middle of the desk. This one is only moderately humiliating. Comforting. I sat on the edge of the bed. Sophie remained near the door until I patted the mattress beside me. She hesitated, then sat close enough that our knees touched. I unfolded the page. May 19th. You called today and spent 6 minutes describing a camel that stole somebody's lunch. I laughed because you wanted me to, but I could tell you were exhausted. I almost told you I love you. My breath stopped. Beside me, Sophie went very still. I kept reading. Not in the casual way I say I love the Thai place downstairs, or how I love when you remember to buy my tea. I mean, I think I've been falling in love with you for months. And somehow, it took you being 7,000 miles away for me to stop lying to myself. I didn't tell you because you sounded so far away. Because you've made it clear that waiting is too much to ask of anyone. But you never asked me. The page blurred slightly. I blinked and forced the words back into focus. Maybe that's what hurts? You decided for me. I lowered the letter. Sophie stared at her hands. Moderately humiliating may have been an inaccurate rating. You love me? She flinched at the directness of it. That's what I wrote. That isn't what I asked. Her head came up. You don't get to interrogate me like this. I'm not interrogating you. You have your serious sergeant voice. I have one voice. You have at least 12. There's the polite voice you use with neighbors, the annoyed voice you use when I move your tools, and the terrifyingly calm one you used when I backed into the mailbox. You told me the mailbox moved. It was dark. It was concrete. She tried to glare, but her mouth betrayed her. I set the letter aside. This isn't my sergeant voice, I said. This is me trying not to hope for something I have no right to expect. Her amusement faded. Why wouldn't you have the right? Because I left. You were deployed, Caleb. You didn't abandon me to join a traveling circus. I'll leave again. The words fell between us. I couldn't promise a life without orders, training, temporary assignments, or missed holidays. I couldn't promise every phone call would come on time. My father had worn a uniform too. Growing up, I watched my mother pretend she didn't mind eating anniversary dinners alone. I'd promised myself I would never ask someone to build a life around an empty chair. Sophie turned toward me fully. You keep doing that. Doing what? Rejecting yourself for me. I looked away. She caught my chin and brought my face back to hers. You decide I'll resent you. You decide I can't handle the distance. You decide it's kinder not to ask what I want. Her eyes shone, but her voice was steady. You don't get to choose both sides of this. What do you want? She leaned closer until her forehead touched mine. You, she whispered. Even when you're irritating, even when you fold towels like they're reporting for inspection, even when you're far away. My hand found her waist again. And when I'm home, especially then, I wanted to kiss her. The realization wasn't new. The difference was that this time I didn't force it down or disguise it as something safer. I touched my thumb to her lower lip. Sophie, if I kiss you, I'm not doing it because I'm tired or because I've been away. Good. I'm doing it because I've thought about it for months. Only months? Possibly longer. That's better. And I'm not interested in pretending it didn't happen tomorrow. Her hand slid behind my neck. Caleb? Yeah? You talk too much when you're nervous. Then she kissed me. For one stunned second, I didn't move. Sophie began to pull away, and instinct took over. I drew her back, cupping her face as her lips met mine again. The kiss was soft at first, almost careful. Then she made a quiet sound against my mouth, and 6 months of restraint disappeared. I kissed her the way I'd wanted to in our kitchen, on the balcony, on every late-night video call when she'd smiled and asked if I was sleeping enough. Her fingers threaded into my hair. My arm circled her waist, and she shifted closer until no space remained between us. When we finally separated, she kept her forehead against mine. Welcome home, she breathed. I smiled. That was worth the flight. She kissed the corner of my mouth. You smell terrible. There she is. We sat together on my bed, her legs tucked beneath her, reading pieces of the letters. Some made us laugh. Others revealed lonely nights neither of us had admitted to during our calls. At 4 in the morning, we carried 2 mugs of tea to the balcony and shared the blanket from the couch. It felt like a first date assembled from all the ordinary things we already shared. Sophie rested her head on my shoulder. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "I take you to dinner. We've had dinner hundreds of times. Not like this. Will there be rules?" "One." She tilted her face toward mine. "Which is? I'm allowed to kiss you at the end." "That sounds less like a rule and more like a request. Is it approved?" She kissed me slowly beneath the fading stars. Conditionally. I laughed and pulled her closer. Then I noticed 3 cardboard boxes stacked behind the balcony door. Each was marked in Sophie's handwriting. Kitchen, books, Denver. My smile faded. "Sophie?" She followed my gaze. The warmth left her expression. "I was going to tell you after you got some sleep." "Tell me what?" She sat up, drawing the blanket tightly around herself. "The day after you left, my company offered me a promotion." I looked at the boxes again. "In Denver?" She nodded. "When do they need an answer?" Sophie's eyes held mine. "Tomorrow." "When were you going to tell me?" I asked. Sophie looked at the boxes instead of me. "Before you came home." "That clears up nothing. I was supposed to have 2 more weeks." "So you plan to move out while I was gone?" Her face tightened. "I plan to make a decision while you were gone. There are boxes. People can own boxes without crossing state lines. 3 of them say Denver. I like an organized hypothetical." I stood, letting the blanket fall from my shoulders. The sky beyond the balcony had begun turning pale. An hour earlier, I'd kissed Sophie and believed the hardest part was over. Now it felt as if I'd come home just in time to watch her leave. "It's a major promotion," she said. "Creative director, almost twice my salary, my own team, bigger clients. You should take it." The words came automatically. They were the correct words, supportive, unselfish. Sophie stared at me as if I'd slapped her. "That was fast." "It sounds like a great opportunity." "I know what it is." "Then what do you want me to say?" She stood and folded the blanket with angry, uneven movements. "I don't know, Caleb. Maybe take longer than 4 seconds before encouraging me to move 1,700 miles away. You want me to tell you to give up your career?" "No." "Then help me understand." "I want you to care." "I do care." "You're doing it again." She tossed the blanket onto a chair. "You're deciding what the noble response should be without saying what you actually feel." I opened my mouth, but she pointed at me. No sergeant voice, no self-sacrificing speech. Just the truth. The truth was ugly and selfish. I wanted to carry those boxes downstairs and throw them into the recycling bin. I wanted her clothes in the laundry, her tea beside the stove, and her ridiculous collection of decorative pillows occupying most of our couch. I wanted to wake up tomorrow knowing I could kiss her again. "I don't want you to go," I said. Her anger softened. I crossed the balcony and stopped in front of her. "I don't want to come home to an apartment without you in it. I don't want to watch movies alone or cook for one or pretend anyone else stealing my hoodie would feel the same." A trembling smile touched her mouth. "And I really don't want our first kiss to become something we discuss over scheduled video calls." "Then ask me to stay." The request was barely audible. My heart thudded. "Stay." Her eyes closed for a second. I took her hands. "Stay because I want a chance to do this properly. Stay because I'm in love with you too." Her eyes opened. I hadn't planned to say it that way. I hadn't planned to say it at all, not yet, but it was true. "I think I have been for a long time," I continued. I was just better at finding reasons not to admit it. Sophie's fingers tightened around mine. "You're in love with me." Apparently, deployment made me reckless. She laughed through fresh tears. "You picked a strange time to develop courage." "I work slowly, glacially. But," I forced myself to finish, "I'm not asking you to turn down the job." The warmth in her expression dimmed. "I'm asking you not to decide out of fear. Not fear of losing me, and not fear that staying means you weren't brave enough to leave." She studied me for a long moment. "I applied for it because of you. she admitted. That hurt more than I expected. Because you wanted to get away from me? Because I wanted to get away from loving you. She pressed her lips together, gathering herself. The apartment felt empty after you left. Every room reminded me of something I couldn't have. Then the Denver position opened, and I thought maybe distance would fix me. Did it? You've seen the letters. I reached for her waist and pulled her close. No more deciding for each other, she said against my chest. No more. And no pretending. Agreed. And if you say something noble and emotionally repressed, I'm allowed to throw a decorative pillow at you. You own too many. That gives you an unfair tactical advantage. She tipped her head back. You love my pillows. I tolerate them because I love you. Her smile took my breath away. Then she kissed me. This kiss was different from the one in my bedroom. There was nothing tentative about it. Sophie rose onto her toes, slid both arms around my neck, and chose me with an assurance that made 6 months of loneliness feel suddenly worth surviving. I held her against me, one hand at her lower back, the other in her hair. When we separated, she whispered, "Say it again." "I tolerate your pillows." She pinched my side. I laughed and caught her hand. "I love you." "Better. Your turn." Her expression turned playfully thoughtful. "I'm moderately fond of you." "Sophie." I wrote it down 43 times. You can read it whenever you want. 43? Some letters were repetitive. I kissed her until she stopped teasing me. We eventually agreed that no life-changing decision should be made at dawn by two people running on adrenaline, airline coffee, and tea. I slept for 5 hours. When I woke, Sophie had left a note on my pillow. Shower, civilian clothes, kitchen at noon. This is a date. Underneath, she'd added, being late will be noted in your permanent record. I found her in the kitchen wearing a blue sundress and making pancakes. You cooked? I asked. Don't sound terrified. I'm assessing risk. She pointed the spatula at a small stack on the table. I watched 3 tutorials. That explains the fire extinguisher. It's called preparedness. I learned it from you. I stepped behind her, slipped my arms around her waist, and kissed the bare curve of her shoulder. She relaxed against me. This is distracting, she murmured. That's the objective. You're going to burn lunch. Worth it. She turned in my arms. You're different today. Clean? Open. That single word sobered me. I'm trying. I know. She kissed me once, gently, then nudged me toward the table. We ate misshapen pancakes and talked about Denver. Not as an enemy, not as a test, as a real choice. Sophie showed me the job description, the salary, and photos of the office. She admitted the role excited her. I admitted the thought of her leaving scared me. My assignment in Virginia had at least 18 months remaining. I couldn't simply follow her, and neither of us wanted to begin our relationship by demanding the other abandon everything. What if I asked them about remote work? She said. Would you be happy doing that? Maybe, but I need to see the office first, meet the team. When? She glanced at the clock. That's the problem. Her phone rang on the counter. The screen displayed a Denver number. Sophie answered and put it on speaker. A woman introduced herself as the company's vice president and said the final candidate had withdrawn. They wanted Sophie, but the board needed her answer by the following evening. Then came the surprise. We'd like to fly you to Denver this afternoon, the woman said. Tour the office, meet everyone, make sure it feels right. We can cover a second ticket if you want to bring someone whose opinion you trust. Sophie looked at me. The question was already in her eyes. I had 12 days of post-deployment leave, an unpacked duffel, and absolutely no idea whether flying to Denver would help me keep her or make it easier for her to leave. But we had promised not to make each other's choices. So I reached across the counter and took her hand. What time's the flight? I asked. 6 hours later, Sophie and I were flying west. She had the window seat. I had the middle. A businessman beside me had claimed both the armrest and most of my will to live. You're glaring, Sophie whispered. I'm establishing boundaries. With your face? It's an effective face. She smiled and slid her hand into mine beneath the shared airline blanket. The contact softened me instantly, Sophie noticed. Very intimidating, Sergeant Hart. Don't expose tactical weaknesses in public. She rested her head on my shoulder. Your secret is safe. We spent most of the flight discussing everything except the reason we were on it. We compared terrible airport food. She showed me design ideas on her tablet. I told her which crew members had helped create the camel incident from her letter. But as we descended over Colorado, her grip tightened. Nervous? I asked, and what if I love it? There it was. Not, what if they don't like me? What if she liked them? I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Then we deal with that. And if you hate it, it isn't my job. That's not what I meant. I know. I looked past her at the mountains in the distance. But I won't hate something just because it wants you to. Her eyes grew suspiciously bright. That was almost disgustingly romantic. I can ruin it. I'm sure you can. Your elbow has been in my ribs since Baltimore. She laughed and kissed my cheek. The company had booked us separate hotel rooms downtown. Sophie raised an eyebrow when the receptionist handed over 2 key cards. Very respectable, she said in the elevator. I can march back and complain. On what grounds? Emotional inconvenience. The doors opened on her floor. She backed into the hallway, still holding my hand. Meet me downstairs in 20 minutes? I'll be there in 15. Overachiever. She kissed me quickly and disappeared into her room. The office occupied the upper floors of a glass building overlooking the city. Sophie transformed the moment we walked in. She was still the woman who stole my hoodies and threatened pancakes with open flame, but there was a confidence in her I had never seen so clearly. She asked sharp questions. She remembered everyone's name. When the team showed her an upcoming campaign that wasn't working, she studied it for less than a minute before identifying the problem. The room changed. People leaned toward her. I watched from the far end of the conference table, proud enough to feel it in my chest. She belonged there. That realization terrified me. During a break, the vice president, Dana Walsh, found me near the windows. You must be important, she said. I'm the roommate. Dana glanced across the office where Sophie was laughing with 2 designers. I don't think that's how she introduced you. I looked at Sophie. She caught me watching and smiled. No, I said. I guess it isn't. Dana explained that the job required Sophie to lead client meetings, build a new team, and oversee their largest account. It wasn't just a better title. It was the kind of opportunity that could redirect her entire career. When the tour ended, Sophie asked about working remotely from Virginia. Dana's answer was kind but firm. We can allow occasional remote weeks after the first year, but the team needs its director here. Sophie nodded professionally. I saw the disappointment anyway. They gave her until noon the next day. Outside, evening had settled over Denver. The mountains were dark shapes beneath a pink sky. Well, Sophie asked. You were incredible. She searched my face. And you know you want it. She began walking toward the hotel. That isn't fair. I followed. What isn't? You were supposed to point out problems. The office coffee looked questionable. Caleb. The man from accounting wore running shoes with a suit. She stopped on the sidewalk. I'm serious. So am I. You don't have one real criticism? I have several. They're all selfish. People moved around us, hurrying toward restaurants and train platforms. Sophie stood perfectly still. Tell me. I shoved my hands into my pockets. I hate that they're here. I hate that the view is beautiful. I hate that your face lit up when they showed you your office. Her breath trembled. And I hate that I can't ask for a transfer tomorrow and follow you. I never asked you to. I know. She turned away, but not before I saw the tears in her eyes. I gently caught her wrist. Sophie, look at me. I finally told you how I feel, and 24 hours later I'm considering leaving. You were considering it before I came home. That doesn't make it better. It makes it honest. She looked up. What if distance ruins this? I thought about the letters on my desk. All the things she'd felt but kept hidden because I had convinced myself silence was kinder. Distance didn't ruin us, I said. Not talking nearly did. Her expression softened. I moved closer. If you take this job, I'll hate Denver every time I miss you. I'll complain about flights. I'll probably make schedules you find deeply unromantic. You definitely will. But I won't disappear when it gets hard. What are you saying? I'm saying I want you to take the job. Pain flashed across her face, but I cupped her cheeks before she could retreat. And I'm asking you to stay with me. She stared at me. Not in Virginia, I said. In this, with me. A tear escaped, and I brushed it away. I don't need you to choose between loving me and becoming who you want to be. Choose both. Let me choose both too. Her hands closed around the front of my shirt. 1,700 miles, she whispered. 2,600 and some by road. That isn't helpful. I checked during the flight. Of course you did. I also checked ticket prices, direct flight schedules, and how many weekends of leave I should have. You made a spreadsheet, didn't you? It's color-coded. She laughed through her tears and pulled me down into a kiss. We stood on a crowded Denver sidewalk, kissing like we had already wasted enough time. When we separated, Sophie rested her forehead against my chest. I love you, she said. I'm scared, but I love you. I love you too. And I hate your spreadsheet. You haven't seen it. I know you. There are formulas. Very good formulas. That night, we ate at a tiny restaurant near the hotel. Sophie called it our first official date, since pancakes apparently did not qualify. We shared dessert. She stole strawberries from my plate. I kept my hand over hers on the table as we talked about visits, holidays, video calls, and the rules we would need if she moved. No disappearing during arguments, no pretending to be fine, no making sacrifices and keeping them secret. Back at the hotel, she followed me into my room. Separate rooms were wasted money, she said. Should we inform accounting? Tomorrow. She slipped her arms around my neck. There was fear beneath her smile, but desire too. More importantly, there was choice. I kissed her slowly. Later, we lay together in the dark, her head over my heart and my hand tracing circles along her back. Promise me something, she said. Anything. If this becomes too hard, you tell me. You don't decide you're setting me free. I promise. And if I get scared, I tell you. I don't start packing hypothetical boxes. Agreed. She lifted her head. You know those boxes weren't hypothetical. I know. I had already signed a Denver lease application. That startled me. How far did it go? It was approved yesterday. I absorbed that. She had been closer to leaving than I'd understood. What time is move-in? I asked. Her eyes widened. You're not angry? I'm terrified. There's a difference. She kissed my chest and settled against me again. The following morning, Sophie dressed for her meeting while I buttoned my shirt. She looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. Have you decided? I asked. Yes. My stomach clenched. And? She crossed the room and kissed me. I'm accepting the job. The words hurt, even though I had encouraged them. I kissed her back anyway. Then I'm proud of you. At 12:07, we left the office together. Sophie had signed the contract. Her start date was 6 weeks away. We reached the corner when her phone rang. Dana's name appeared on the screen. Sophie answered. She listened without speaking, then looked at me with all the color draining from her face. What is it? I asked when she ended the call. The company that owns our Virginia apartment building just called Dana for an employment verification. I frowned. Why would they? For the lease application, she said. There's been a mistake. What kind of mistake? Sophie swallowed. They approved the Denver lease starting Monday, not 6 weeks from now. She held my gaze. And they've already rented our apartment in Virginia to someone else. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Sophie said, I can fix this. The panic in her voice pulled me back from my own. How? I'll reject the job. Dana hasn't filed everything yet. I'll call the Denver landlord and cancel. No, she blinked. No? We made rules last night. You're breaking at least 2. This is different. It isn't. You're scared, so you're trying to sacrifice something before we've even checked the facts. Our home is gone, Caleb. I took her phone and called our property manager. The situation was bad, but not quite as catastrophic as Sophie believed. Our lease was due for renewal at the end of the month. When Sophie applied in Denver, the screening service contacted the same national property company that owned our Virginia building. Someone saw her relocation date, marked our current lease as non-renewing, and offered the apartment to a waiting tenant. The new tenant wasn't moving in Monday. Sophie's Denver lease began Monday. We still had 30 days in Virginia, but the apartment would no longer be ours after that. "I'm so sorry," Sophie said when I ended the call. "I must have checked the wrong box. Probably the one labeled Create Maximum Emotional Chaos." "This isn't funny." "No, but you look like you're about to volunteer for prison." "I gave away our apartment." "You made a mistake. A huge one." I stepped closer. "Do you want the Denver job?" She stared at me. "That's still your question?" "It's the question." "Yes," she whispered. "Do you want us?" Her expression crumpled. "More than anything." "Then we solve the rest." She shook her head. "How are you so calm?" "I repair aircraft. Panicking usually makes the problem worse." "You were not this calm 5 minutes ago." 5 minutes ago, I was imagining living in my car." That earned a small laugh. I touched her cheek. The apartment was where we lived. It wasn't what made us us. Her arms went around my waist. "What did?" "You stealing my clothes." "Obviously." 43 love letters. Some were drafts. "And you running at me hard enough to bruise a rib." She pressed her face against my chest. "I thought you were a burglar." "You shouted my name." "A very convincing burglar." I kissed the top of her head. "We have 30 days, I said. "I'll help you move. Then I'll find a smaller place near base." Her hold tightened. "I hate that you'll go back to an empty apartment." "It won't be empty." "Caleb, I'll have your decorative pillows." She laughed against me. I lifted her chin. "And this isn't goodbye." "No?" "No, it's going to be difficult, expensive, and occasionally miserable, but I choose you." Her eyes filled. "I choose you too," she said. Then she kissed me in the middle of the Denver sidewalk, one hand gripping my shirt as if distance had already started trying to pull us apart. We flew home that night. Over the next month, our apartment slowly disappeared into boxes. Sophie packed the kitchen. I repacked everything correctly. She accused me of destroying her organizational system. I pointed out that one box labeled bathroom contained a frying pan, 2 novels, and a shoe. "It's a transitional box," she said. "It's a cry for help." On our final night, we ate Thai food on the living room floor because the table was already gone. The room echoed when we laughed. Sophie sat between my legs, leaning back against my chest. The photo from my bedroom rested beside us, wrapped for the trip. The letters were packed in my carry-on because I refused to trust them to movers. "You realize this is technically our second first date on the floor," she said. "Pancakes counted." "They did not." "You kissed me. You distracted me while operating a stove. That was reckless." I brushed her hair away from her neck and kissed the skin beneath her ear. She tilted her head, giving me better access. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Distracting me." "Still reckless?" "Extremely." She turned in my arms and kissed me slowly. When she pulled away, I reached into my pocket. Her eyes widened. "Caleb, it isn't a ring." "Thank God." I paused. "Not because I don't want," she added quickly. "I do, eventually. But if you proposed after 3 official dates, I'd question whether you suffered a head injury overseas." "Good recovery." I opened my hand. A new key lay in my palm. "What's that?" she asked. "The studio I rented near base." Her smile faded with confusion. "Why are you giving it to me?" "Because it's still your home too." She closed her fingers around the key. "Even from Denver?" "Especially from Denver." She kissed me with tears on her cheeks. The next morning, I drove west with her. We took 3 days, stopped at roadside attractions she claimed were culturally important, and argued about music across 4 states. At every hotel, she fell asleep with her hand against my chest. When we reached Denver, I helped her unpack. Before my flight back, she stood with me at the airport security line, trying not to cry. 6 weeks, I said, until your next visit. 4, if I can trade a weekend? You already checked. I have a spreadsheet. She wrapped her arms around my neck. This time, I was the one who didn't want to let go. The next 18 months tested every promise we made. There were delayed flights, missed calls, and one argument that lasted across 2 time zones. Sophie hated when I went quiet after difficult shifts. I hated when she said she was fine in the exact tone that meant she wasn't. But we learned. We scheduled dates over video. We mailed each other handwritten letters even though texting was faster. She flew to Virginia for my promotion ceremony. I spent Christmas in Denver and burned dinner so badly that she banned me from criticizing her pancakes. When my active duty commitment approached its end, I applied for a full-time Air National Guard aircraft maintenance position at Buckley. I didn't tell Sophie until I had the interview. Not because I wanted to surprise her, but because I wanted to be certain I wasn't making another noble decision she hadn't asked for. We talked for hours about my career, her career, money, distance. What we both wanted 5 years from then. For the first time in my life, building a future with someone didn't feel like surrendering part of myself. It felt like choosing where I belonged. I got the position. A year and 9 months after Sophie ran into my arms in Virginia, I arrived at her Denver apartment with another military duffel and a one-way ticket. She opened the door, stared at me, and ran. I caught her around the waist as she jumped into my arms. "You're early," she whispered. "Only 3 days this time." She kissed me until someone in the hallway applauded. Then I carried her inside and set her down among the boxes she'd packed for our new place. One box sat apart from the others. It was labeled Letters, Photos, Our Life. I reached inside and removed a small velvet case. Sophie covered her mouth. "I know this is more than 3 dates," I said. "Technically. And I'm done pretending I can plan my life without asking what you want." I lowered myself to one knee. "Sophie Bennett, will you stay in this with me?" She dropped to her knees too, tears already falling. "Yes." "You're supposed to let me finish. You talk too much when you're nervous." Then she kissed me before I could put the ring on. By the following spring, we were married on a mountain overlook with our families, my military friends, and 43 of her letters tied together with a blue ribbon on the table beside our wedding photo. We still had separate closets because Sophie refused to stop stealing my hoodies. I still made schedules. She still ignored them. And whenever I came home in uniform, she met me at the door, wrapped herself around me, and held on. I no longer mistook it for fear that I might leave. It was her way of reminding me that I had somewhere and someone to come home to. What would you have done if you came home from overseas 2 weeks early and your roommate ran into your arms? Would you confess your feelings or protect the friendship? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.